Regarding Khomeini imagery and the bridge march, do you consider Ayatollah Khomeini an evil person? Or was he an evil person, I should say? You should use the past tense now.
I do believe that, yes.
And why were police not directed to remove his portraits from the 3rd of March, or 3rd of August march over the bridge?
Well, we don't direct police. They've got to make operational decisions as they see it, and that's the separation of powers as it applies, in the world. You'd appreciate Mr. Borsak, the government and the parliament's passed significant measures in relation to hate speech, terrorist symbols, and other signs and symbols that would apply today that may not have applied on that day. But it was, frankly, it was a shocking sign to see somebody carry that portrait across the Harbour Bridge. I'm also conscious of the fact, and I completely accept that there were tens of thousands of people that have got nothing to do with Ayatollah Khomeini, don't support the regime, and were marching not because they support Iran or Hezbollah, but were worried about the human toll in Gaza.
Well, do you consider now that Khomeini imagery is, under current law, for example, that you've just mentioned, and other extremist symbols should be removed in the future? Should be illegal?
Well, terrorist symbols should be, and...
Well, the Ayatollah was the chief sponsor of terrorism for the last 47 years, especially in relation to the Jewish community.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're talking to me. I agree with you. I've been under attack for the last 3 days for calling him out for being evil as some kind of an attack on multiculturalism or an assault on the Muslim community for saying what is blindingly obvious to millions of people around the world. He's responsible for killing 30,000 of his own people in the last couple of weeks. I mean, he's in a situation where his regime murdered 12-year-old boys for the supposed crime of being gay. The regime's currently bombing Muslim countries. I mean, the biggest victims of the Ayatollah's regime were other Muslims. And one mayor in particular was suggesting that this was an attack on Muslims to point out what was absolutely abundantly clear, and that is that he was evil and his legacy is evil. And we should be able to say that in multicultural Australia without being accused of trying to sow disharmony. That is not what multiculturalism means in 2026 in Australia. Well,
having said what you said, and I agree, you have called out radicals in relation to that, in relation to mourning Khomeini. Do you concede that the Bondi massacre was performed by radical Islam?
That may well be the case, but I'm very conscious that needs to be thoroughly investigated by the Royal Commission. And obviously there's a criminal case that's taking place too, but I've got a concern about it.
Do you expect police to act in the future against Khomeini portraits, ISIS flags, Hezbollah, Hamas flags, or chants such as the global intifada and from the river to the sea as hate crimes?
Well, we need to break them down. Hezbollah flags, yes. ISIS flags, yes. Hamas flags, yes. A portrait, I think that would be a breach of, as distasteful as I would find it, that would be a breach, I suspect, of constitutional provisions, and I'm not sure I would support it anyway. I mean, my description of the Ayatollah and his evil regime, I think is appropriate. I don't think we should have a particular law, for example, that would outlaw someone having prayers for someone who's died. I think that would be a step too far. Now, we live in a civic society, and as the Premier of New South Wales, I've got every right to comment about whether I think it's distasteful or antithetical to modern Australia.
What about global intifada?
So you just asked a few things, so I think I need a bit of time to break down my response. So yes, in relation to those terrorist banners, as it relates to globalise the intifada, I do believe that's an incitement to violence in a place like Australia. As it relates to from the river to the sea, I don't think that should be outlawed as part of the provisions in the bill.
But from the river to the sea is advocating for the mass murder of the Jewish state and all the people that live there.
Well, look, the UK has found that there's multiple interpretations of it, and I know that the committee looked at it in particular as well. And I mean, a lot of these things, one of the things that I think we have to grapple with as a society and a community is that some things should be illegal because they're an incitement to violence. Some things are distasteful and should be confronted by civic and community leaders, but are very difficult to codify in law, and
honestly,
shouldn't necessarily be illegal.
Honestly, I fail to see the difference, but anyway.